Man, y'all, I'm sitting here watching clips and kind of doing show prep and getting ready, and realized all of a sudden, holy crap, it's 7:30, and it's time to hit that button and go live. I still had to pop up and turn on the studio lights. And, whew, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Let's see who's got first blood this morning. Trish, good morning. Okay. Hey, we're still enjoying, by the way, that giant supply of powdered jalapeno you sent us. That stuff is absolutely amazing. Anyway, in fact, yeah, I've incorporated the powdered jalapenos that you sent, Trish. I've incorporated into them. I have incorporated them into my usual suspects. So I've got a seasoning shaker. It says usual suspects on the side of it, and it's the basic seasoning that I put on everything that goes on the griddle. That's not some kind of that doesn't have a distinct flavor. So if I'm not cooking like Indian food or Mexican food or whatever that has a particular flavor palette, just throw it on a steak. Just gonna grill some chicken, whatever. And it's salt, regular salt, black pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, smoked paprika, and the powdered jalapeno, and it kills it every time. So, Megan says the kids are watching Happy Tree Friends. Oh dear. Oh dear. I'm not sure about that one, Sunshine. I remember Happy Tree Friends. Ooh, the grenades. Yes. So, what are we talking about this morning? This is Pete Hegseth had his confirmation hearing yesterday, and we don't have a confirmation yet. I'm hoping we get one. Before we get into the clips that I've pulled and get into the topic at hand, I want to say this. There better not be a Republican that votes against the confirmation of any of Donald Trump's nominees, right? And let me be clear. Like even with like Pam Bondi, she's not a perfect option, and yes, I think we could. Hell, Matt Gaetz would have been a much better option. I could think of a lot of better choices, but the Trump agenda is going to be, as long as it's not obstructed like he was in his first term, it's going to be amazing for the country. Cameron says, check the mic input. Oh, hey, what do you know?
How about now, Cameron? Is that better? Let me know. You were correct. It was on the wireless headset, not on the soundboard where it should have been. Thank you. So, shit. Now I forgot. Oh, so for example, we've got two Supreme Court justices that I was not a big fan of, but they have been the worst thing they could be. Kavanaugh and Barrett, but they haven't been great. And I said up front, I wasn't particularly fond of either of them because they're both diversity hires. And to be clear, when I say they're both diversity hires, right, there was a lot of hay made about the fact that Amy Coney Barrett is a woman, and that was somehow a qualifying factor. And then, of course, during his confirmation hearings, one of the things that Kavanaugh harped on is the number of women that he has employed as a judge. And the correct response to that is, what the fuck does that have to do with the price of butter? Right? I do not care how many women you've hired. Unless, right, I don't care how many blacks, how many women, how many gays, I don't care how many whatevers you've hired, unless you care about it. If you think that hiring people based on an immutable characteristic rather than on their curriculum vitae and demonstrable professional competency, now we have a problem, right? But Trump's nominees, by and large, are very good. I have some concerns. About Tulsi Gabbard, right? I like Tulsi on a lot of stuff, but she was a Democrat. And let's be fair. Let's be real fair. all of us that went out and voted the MAGA ticket this year, what we had to do from Donald Trump, JFK, Tulsi Gabbard, on down the line, what we all just did is we went into that voting booth and we said, well, since there aren't any Republicans running for office, we'll vote for the old Democrats against the current communists. That's where we've gotten to. So there are no perfect answers, but we cannot let perfect be the enemy of the good. Now, that said, Pete Hegseth as SecDef is just about a perfect option. In fact, my only real criticism, because I'm not gonna criticize his personal life as far as, too much sex, too much drinking, as long as it's not something that interferes with his professional life. Y'all, I've known a lot of great soldiers. I have known a lot of great soldiers who spent a little too much time in the bottle and maybe had one too many TD wives. For those of you who are veterans, you'll understand that joke, the TD wife. That's shoe buddy. Cameron correctly points out, yeah, but Trump and even Reagan used to be Democrats. That's not a disqualification. Right? And hey, Bush ran as a Republican and then turned out to be a Democrat. The second Bush. The first Bush was all right. Not great, but all right. But so I've got this clip pulled up. Wait, let me see who shared. So Colin Rugg shared this top 5 moments from the Hegseth hearing. I want to share this with you guys.
A small handful of anonymous sources were allowed to drive a smear campaign, an agenda about me, because our left-wing media in America today, sadly, doesn't care about the truth. All they were out to do, Mr. Chairman, was to destroy me. And why do they want to destroy me? Because I'm a change agent and a threat to them, because Donald Trump was willing to choose me, to empower me, to bring the Defense Department back to what it really should be, which is war fighting.
Everything you've said in these public statements.
War fighting. Absolutely war fighting. And that is, y'all, right? I'm one that knows a little something about this, right? Right. I got a couple of awards on the wall. And hey, I've been out. I've been out for over a decade now, but I did my time. I went to war. I deployed, engaged with, and destroyed the enemies of the United States of America. That was my job. Make no mistake, the job of a warfighter, the job of a soldier, is to kill people and blow shit up. It's not to kill the right people. It's not to blow up the right shit. No. We have other people whose job it is to point the weapon at the right target. And as a warfighter on the ground, yes, you have your own judgment and you're going to make judgment calls, but by and large, your job is to assume that you've been pointed at the right target, and you go there and kill people and blow shit up. That's the job. That's the job. And I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that it's a fun job. But please believe when I tell you that warfighting is more fun than most of us should ever be allowed to have. It really is. And there's a way up at the top of the list of the reasons that I got out when I did, apart from some injuries and disability, is my wife wanted me to stop getting shot at. And I can tell you guys, I had so much fun when I was deployed. I've got a lot of buddies who have gone back over and over and over again because they were young and single, and you make money and you have fun, and it's awesome. And I cannot promise you that I would not have gone back over and over and over again if I didn't have a wife and kids at home when I got back. And that's not a complaint. That's just an honest assessment of reality. chose to do the husband and father thing, and it's difficult to square that with being an active duty combat deploying soldier. It is. It really is, because you're making a choice. You're making a very difficult choice to go and do the job or to stay home and do the job, because you have conflicting duties. It's difficult. It's difficult to do. I did it for a long time, and it's difficult. But what he's saying about smear campaigns, like we just went through the third Trump campaign, and like we said yesterday on the show, it has been amazing to watch over the last year the extent to which the media is willing to just absolutely make things up out of whole cloth, just outright lie. Right? We went from them selectively editing video clips and just cutting off important context so that they can make the claim that Donald Trump said there were good people on both sides. And then somebody else can come out and say, and what he meant was there were good neo-Nazis there, because they cut off the last bit of the sentence where he literally says, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis. Right? So we went from telling partial truth in order to let the truth tell the lie for you, to Pete Hegseth drunk all the time. Says who? Oh, an anonymous source. An anonymous. So it was the same guy that said Trump called all the soldiers suckers and losers. Right? Let's pretend for a moment that I believe you found a person who said that. Now I'm also supposed to believe that person is not a liar? I don't even know who that person is. But I know that person has made an incredible claim from the safety of anonymity without supplying commensurately incredible evidence. So you just shut the fuck up with all that nonsense.
Defense Department back to what it really should be.
Men, I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal. I mean, you're basically saying women, after they have children, can't ever serve in the military in a combat role. It's a silly thing to say. So
they're trying to make a conflation here. They're trying to make it sound like like Hegseth said that there should be no women in the military. And this is really the greatest criticism that I have to offer Hegseth as a nominee, is that as he's been getting closer and closer to this confirmation hearing, he's been walking back some of his commentary about women in combat. Let's be clear about something. There is absolutely no place for women in combat. Full stop. There is room for women in the military. There are jobs in the military. In fact, the majority of jobs in the military are not combat roles. Tell your young guys, I have, in my life, I've talked to a lot of young guys who have just learned, they're 19, 20, 21 years old. They've just learned that their girlfriend's pregnant and they're in panic mode. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I've told them, okay, you just found out. She's what, 2 months in? 3 months in? Listen, son, 6 months is a lot of time. You can get through basic combat training and an A school for a lot of jobs in the Army and be at your first duty station in a house with your hot young wife, with the baby on the way, getting paid with benefits. Go talk to the recruiter now. Right? And those jobs, a lot of those jobs are not 11 bang bang trigger pullers or something Delta jumping out of an airplane, attack ninjas. Right? You don't have to be a fister. You don't have to be an EOD. You don't have to be a combat sword slinger. Right? I mean, and even the job that I had, at least on paper, was technically not a combat operations job. Right? Okay, I did something else. But on paper, I was a desk jockey, right? In theory. I mean, I was a Korean linguist that's never been to Korea. But, yeah, my job was super safe. Anyway, so, and okay, let me go totally sexist for a minute. We've got quartermasters that do laundry. We've got cooks, right? We've all that, but there's a whole suite of medical professions, right? Everything from specialist janitorial sanitary staff all the way up to nurses and doctors, right? And I've known some fantastic military doctors that were females. It's something women are good at. Now, in the medical field generally, this is a whole nother conversation, but in the medical field generally, women tend to not pursue technical specialties, right? You see more women in like
How about now? If I don't get a response from you guys real quick, I'm gonna reboot the sound and everything, and you're gonna lose me for a minute, and I'm gonna come right back. Anybody, y'all let me know. Okay, you guys that are watching who have access to the infamous thread, I'm commenting over there, trying to see if we can get it fixed over there. Quick, Cameron Patrick. Okay, be controversial. Okay. Sergeant Major said finish the show in chat mode. That would have been hilarious. Damn, where did you lose me? Where did I? How far back was I in the comments before you lost sound? I think is the best question. But basically, what I was saying is there's no room for women in combat. So let me get back to. Patrick says it's loud though. You know what? You're just gonna have to live with loud because I'm not gonna change. I'm not gonna change back over to a different microphone and risk losing the sound for the rest of the show. So we're back on this one. So like I was saying, there's no room for women in combat. A woman cannot do the job. Back when I was still active duty, we had a set of PT standards. A young man would have to run. A young man would have to run if he was 18, 19 years old. He'd have to run a 2 mile. He'd have to do the 2 mile run in. I think it was about 15 minutes was the slowest he could run it. Might have been even a little faster than that he had to run it. But he'd get like 15 minutes to run his 2 miles. Need to do 45 push-ups in 2 minutes. And I think it was 65 sit-ups in 2 minutes back then. I was never real good on. I was never real clear. I never paid real close attention to the youngest standards bar, the one that most of the soldiers started on, because I was 25 when I enlisted, so I was on the old man standard already. But even on the old man standard, I had let's see, I was 31 when I got out. I was 31 when I left the Army, and at that age, I think I had like 16 minutes and 45 seconds for my 2 mile run, and I could pass push-ups and sit-ups with like 40 and 50, right? And Sergeant Major says, have you ever seen a 110-pound woman carry a field medical bag? Of course not. No, of course not, right? Have you ever seen a 110-pound woman carry a 300-pound man in a fireman carry the length of a football field and back? No, you haven't. And when we were talking about these California wildfires just recently, we had that clip of the chief diversity officer from the LA Fire Department, right? Big chunky black woman, and she says, "Well, they asked, can you carry my husband out of the house? Well, if your husband got himself stuck in a house that's on fire, that's his fault. That's his problem. No, that's your job, bitch." So let me be very clear about this. That fat bitch, the fire department chick, right, that says that's not my problem, he got himself in that situation. That is every woman in a combat role. Without exception. Without exception. So what happened? Sergeant Major says I could pass the ACFT, but would not be able to walk the next day. Yeah, at my fastest, I could run the 2 mile in 15 minutes flat. But in fairness, when I could run the 2 mile in 15 minutes flat, I could run it in 15 minutes flat, whether I was in, Ranger panties and running shoes or boots and utes with a full battle rattle. It didn't make any difference. Right? Throwing on a 120-pound load. Throwing on a 120-pound combat load to run was not sufficient to change my running speed. That's the level of fitness that I was at then. And I'd throw up at the end of that run every time. But late, after I got out, they started playing with the PT standards to try and get the to try and get more women in. Alex says you're using the wrong mic again. Yeah, we just had a failure with this one. We lost audio, so I switched over to this one. But so we're on the wrong mic. We are on the wrong mic, and it is intentional, Alex. But they changed the standards, and what they did is they brought the female standard up a little bit, and they brought the male standard down a lot to try and get them to meet in the middle. So, let me go. Before they made all those changes, right? So a man would have to run the 2 miles in 15 minutes. We're talking like the 18, 19, 20-year-old bracket. I think they'd have about 15 minutes to run the 2 mile, 45 or 50 push-ups in 2 minutes, and 55 or 60 or 65 sit-ups in 2 minutes, right? The female standard, they get almost 5 minutes more at every bracket level, at every age bracket. They get almost an extra 5 minutes to run the 2 mile. They had to do less than half of the push-ups, and the sit-ups were about the same, right? And that, okay, and that's a physiological thing, right? The baby making muscles, or more correctly, the baby ejecting muscles, mean that women are actually pretty good on abdominal muscles and do a pretty good job of doing a shitload of sit-ups in 2 minutes, but they can't do the push-ups. Well, not all women. Shut the fuck up. Yes, all women. Right? Your outlier exception is absolutely irrelevant when you're talking about the fighting force. If you could point me to one woman that can do everything a man can do, that is not the same as saying all women are exactly the same as all men. Well, let's say, we simplify the whole process, right? Every MEPS, that's Military Entrance Processing Station, every MEPS in the country needs to have a case of pickle jars on hand. Hey, Sergeant, I want to join the Army. Yeah, cool. Open this. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If you're sitting there doing this, no dice. You don't even get to come in and take the test. Right? Start there. Hand him a pickle jar. Can't open the pickle jar, you got no business here. Now, like I was saying a minute ago, in order to try and equalize, democratize, or whatever, the gender roles and combat roles, the Army did, well, and they did it across all services. The Army lowered the fitness standards for men and raised the fitness standards for women. And what they found, and this was kind of like when they tried to use IQ tests back going into World War II, what they found is not what they had hoped to find. They found that as soon as they raised the PT standard, women were dropping like flies. They couldn't do it. We've seen all kinds of stories about, oh yeah, we got our first Ranger. We got our first woman through Ranger school. Yeah? What was her 2 mile run? What was her 10-mile ruck march speed? Because I promise you, she did not go through on the male standard. She went through on a lower standard. Hegseth says over and over again, it's always been about standards, and that is correct. That is correct. Right? In full battle rattle, I'm walking around in an 85-pound body armor upper. Right? Now, most of our guys, their body armor is only about 35 pounds. I'm a big dude, right? Quadruple extra large IOTV with ceramic plates, and it weighs about 85 pounds. And then I've got, 100 to 150 pounds of backpack because I'm, let's just say I've got radios, because I've got a special radio on my back. And, and then you've got another 10, 15 pounds of ammunition and equipment mounted to the front of you. Right, when I'm walking around in full battle rattle, I'm a 400 or 500 pound monstrosity. You got the helmet, you got boots, you got the body armor, you got the kit. let's throw my kid on a woman and see how that works out. It doesn't work. And I've been in active duty units where I was in the intel world, and precisely because the majority of that is not combat operation, we get a lot of women in there. Guess what else we get a lot of? And I mean like a lot. Medical waivers. PT profiles. Body fat waivers with medical exemptions. Got a lot of girls in there that, oh, well, she doesn't have to meet the fitness standards because she has this medical condition. Well, she can't meet the standard. I don't give a shit what the medical condition is, right? Breaks my heart for you. But if a man, show me a man that got his leg blown off and tell me, well, no, ableism, right? We can't discriminate. Well, hold on a minute. But he can't do the job. Well, he can do something. Okay, well, sure, he can do something. Yeah, we've got desk jobs. In fact, for the desk jobs, that's the thing. For every job that a woman can do in garrison, right? Forget about combat operations. Forget about the theater of war for a minute. In garrison, right? There's a lot of jobs where you can ride a desk for an entire career. Administrative stuff, 92 alphas. Right? In fact, I'd love to see more women as 92 alphas instead of a lot of the people that we've got there. You've got your shops, you've got your S1, your S2, your S3, right? Your S6, right? Your comms, your security. There's plenty of places, but you never have to be engaged in combat with the enemy. Now, that said, there's a lot of those desk jobs. If you're always in garrison and never deployed, then maybe you don't need to meet the physical standard. And oh, by the way, you don't. AOC had a meltdown yesterday about ladyboys playing girls' sports and the whole tranny issue. And let me just explain you something real quick. And I promise this is relevant to this current topic because we're talking about standards. When you're talking about trans boys going to play women's sports, there's an important part of that conversation that has been absolutely neglected and needs to be a part of the conversation. There are no men's sports. They don't exist. There's no such thing as men's baseball, men's basketball, men's football, etc. There's football, baseball, basketball, etc. And if you want to play at the professional level, you try out. You compete, and if you're the best for the job, if you do well at tryouts and you do better than the other guys you're competing against, in fact, the other people you're competing against, then you get picked. There are women's basketball, I don't know if there is a women's football league, but there are women's sports, women's basketball, women's baseball, et cetera, right? And those sports exist for the sole reason that women cannot compete with men in those sports. And understand, when we're talking about this, we're not talking about all women and all men. You're talking about the men who are at the top of their game, right? So broadly across humans, men are more diverse than women. Women tend to cluster around the center. They tend to be more average, right? You will meet women who are average height, average intelligence, average health, average fitness more often than you will meet men that are average across multiple spectra. That's why there's the stereotype of the big dumb jock and the nerdy little geek. right? Men tend to min-match their stat sheet. So you get the 180 IQ with the 12 stat points for physical, right? Or you get to be, Hercules with a dunce cap. That's kind of how it works for men generally. Somebody like me that's big, strong, and smart, we are fucking unicorns. And I know that sounds like I'm tooting my own horn a little bit, and in fairness, I am. But put that in perspective. Less than a third of Americans are physically fit enough, have a clean criminal background check, have a clean financial record, are not in crippling debt, right? And have no concerning foreign or external entanglements that make them a security risk. Less than a third of Americans can qualify to enlist in the military. So I was in that 1/3. Of those, once you get past that hurdle, less than a third can score high enough on the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, which is a test of your competency in several key places. The majority of people who can qualify to enlist will do well in a few areas on the ASVAB and not so great in others. Like they may do pretty good on the mechanical questions, but not do great on the more advanced math questions or whatever, right? Most people end up being pretty good at a couple of things and not so great at a few others, and score somewhere in that average 60-70 range. I maxed out the ASVAB. Now, of that third of a third, then you've got the DLAB, which is a test of how well you're capable of learning foreign languages. I'm maxed out on that. And then I got to go to the most competitive college in the world, where only a third of Americans can enlist, and then only a third of those can get high enough on the first test, and then only a third of the ones that get to take the next test get to go to the school, and then only a third of the ones that took the next test score high enough to take the Category 4 and Category 5 languages. And that's where I got to. And once you get to that position, half those motherfuckers fail and either get thrown out of the military or reassigned to a dumber job, right? It's about standards. And at every step, to get to having one of the coolest jobs in the world, I had to compete. I had to compete against the metrics of the best of the best of the best, constantly being whittled down to the best of the best of the best. And guess what? Women go there. There were women at that school. Women who were there to learn a foreign language and take a job that would have them sit at a desk with a pair of headphones on. In fact, the Air Force unit there had a combat patch that was a picture of a skull with a pair of cans on, and their unit motto was "Until our ears bleed," right? And that's in Monterey, California. That's where Pete Hegseth apparently got himself in trouble with some woman who was there with her husband and kids and voluntarily went inebriated to another man's hotel room and then cried rape, because there's nothing suspicious about that shit at all. Why is there no men's sports? Because there don't need to be. Because Rochelle says, yes, there is women's football, and it's exactly what you think it is, or was. I remember there being a women's football. It was kind of a sales gimmick, I think, for like Sports Illustrated swimsuit, whatever. They did they did bikini tag football or bikini flag football. There's a bunch of hot underwear models out there with shoulder pads on, running and jiggling. I don't think that lasted very long, but I remember seeing ads for it. What, 20 years ago, probably. But just like there's no men's sport, there's only sports and then women's sports, because women can't compete. You're competing against the top, right? So a woman going to compete to play football, not women's football, is not competing against an average man. She's competing against a man who is in peak physical condition. He is an extreme outlier. That's what every soldier is supposed to be. A soldier at a minimum standard is at a level of physical fitness and activity of a professional sports player. Right? When I was active duty, I would run 50 to 100 miles a week. Right? You're in the gym lifting weights 2 or 3 times a day. You're doing push-ups to failure, right? Who are my veterans out there? I bet you've done some towel push-ups. Right? That's where you do push-ups until your arms fail, until your muscles quit, and you're no longer physically able to do a push-up. And so some asshole comes and wraps a towel around your chest, a beach towel around your chest, and stands over you and assists you so that you can do 20 more push-ups after your arms fail. Right? That's why there's no place for women in combat, because they are not physically capable of competing with a man for the spot. It is a metaphysical impossibility to find a woman who is more qualified than a man for that job. It's that simple. If you say you must have women in combat roles, then the other side of that assumption is, in order to do that, you have to choose someone who is less fit for the position than someone else who is competing for it. 100%. And I'll close on this. Let me remind you of this. The original argument was that a woman can do anything a man can do as well as a man can do it. Men are not just better, men and women are not even different. And you hear them scream, equal work, equal pay for equal work. Here's the thing. If every time we have to pick up 2 10-gallon, 80-pound jerry cans of diesel fuel and carry it from the chew to the truck, I have to pick it up because you can't lift it, because you can't pick up 160 pounds of gas and walk a quarter mile with it to refuel the truck. But bitch, you're probably the one that forgot to fill it up to begin with. If you can't do that, you are not being paid equal pay for equal work. You are being paid what I'm being paid to do the work that you can't do. And that is not fair. So I will take it a step further than Hegseth saying there should not be women in combat. Women should not be paid the same as men in military service, because they are not doing equal work. They are doing less work at a lower standard. Now, if you want to make the argument that men who spend their entire career in garrison are practically the same as women who spend their entire career in garrison and never deploy to combat roles, That's fine. I'm there for you. You know, a man and a woman, you know, a man and a woman writing training schedules and risk assessments. Sure, that's brain work. Yeah, go for it. But if you want to clear a building in an urban environment with me, we're not doing that together until we have marched 5 miles with a 100-pound ruck, spent a half an hour together in the gas chamber singing the Army song and doing push-ups, and marched back to the starting point. You can't do 10 miles in a chemical attack with me, then you do not get to watch my back, because you can't do it. Because if I take a bullet in combat, then I don't want some big fat chunky Unterdijk saying, "Hey man, you got yourself in that mess." Bitch, I would have toted you. Oh, that's right. Because I can. All right. If I don't go ahead and just put a pin in it right there, I'm going to start really going off the rabbit trail and get myself in trouble. And well, I've got my chiropractor appointment this morning. Largely because I did the things that men can do in combat. So thanks for watching this morning, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.